The Eastwood neighborhood of Primston lay draped in the golden glow of twilight, a peaceful enclave that often felt like a world apart from the chaos of the city. The camera panned over the streets lined with modest homes, neatly trimmed lawns, and children riding bicycles. In the midst of this tranquility, one house throbbed with pulsating music, the sounds of laughter spilling into the night air. Nathan Brooks, a middle-aged white man with a reputation for arrogance and a penchant for throwing raucous parties, stood at the center of it all, reveling in the attention of his guests. Nathan, with his broad shoulders and a smug grin plastered across his face, raised his drink high, calling out to his friends. "This is how we do it in Primston," he shouted, his voice booming over the thumping bass. The crowd surrounding him cheered, their excitement drowning out the muffled complaints of neighbors who had long grown weary of his loud gatherings. Across the street, Jordan Carter, the respected black police chief of Primston, was enjoying a quiet family night. Inside his home, the warmth of laughter and love contrasted sharply with the chaos next door. His children were sprawled on the living room floor, building a fortress out of brightly colored blocks, while the aroma of homemade dinner wafted through the air. "Look, Dad, we made the biggest castle," his youngest daughter exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with pride. Jordan chuckled, watching her excitement. "That's amazing, sweetheart. It looks like a real palace," he replied, ruffling her hair affectionately. Yet, as the minutes ticked by, the booming music and raucous laughter from Nathan's party grew louder, invading the sanctuary of Jordan's home. He glanced at the clock, noting how late it was getting, and felt a familiar sense of frustration wash over him. This wasn't the first time Nathan's parties had disturbed the neighborhood, and Jordan had always chosen to maintain his composure, believing in the value of peaceful resolution. "Dad, can we have ice cream after dinner?" his son piped up, trying to push aside the growing noise from outside. Jordan smiled, but his mind was elsewhere. He stood up, looking out the window at the celebration unfolding across the street. The sight of Nathan, with his smug expression and careless laughter, ignited a simmering anger within him. He understood that confronting Nathan would not be easy, but he felt a responsibility to his family and his neighborhood. After a moment of deliberation, Jordan took a deep breath. "All right, kids, finish up your blocks. I need to go talk to Mr. Brooks," he said, masking his apprehension with a calm tone. The children looked at him with wide eyes, sensing the tension in the air. "Be careful, Dad," his daughter said softly, her innocent concern tugging at his heart. "I will, sweetheart. Just stay here and keep an eye on each other," he reassured them, stepping out into the cool evening air. As he crossed the street, Jordan's heart raced. The music grew louder, punctuated by the occasional burst of laughter from Nathan's guests. He approached the house, where the lights blared and shadows danced across the lawn. Taking a moment to steady himself, he knocked on the door, hoping for an amicable discussion. The door swung open, and Nathan's face transformed from surprise to a sneer as he recognized his neighbor. "What do you want, Carter?" he spat, his tone dripping with disdain. "Hey, Nathan, I just wanted to talk about the noise. It's really late, and it's been quite disruptive," Jordan said, keeping his voice steady despite the hostility radiating from Nathan. "Disruptive? You mean fun. Maybe you should lighten up a bit, Chief," Nathan retorted, leaning against the doorframe, clearly enjoying the power dynamic that had shifted in his favor. Jordan felt the frustration bubbling beneath the surface, but he held his ground. "I get that you want to have a good time, but this is a residential neighborhood. We all have responsibilities, you know?" Nathan laughed mockingly, the sound echoing into the night. "Responsibilities? Come on, you're just jealous you can't have fun like the rest of us. Maybe if you weren't so uptight, you'd understand." With every word, Nathan's arrogance grew, and Jordan could feel the anger simmering within him. Yet, he clung to his resolve, knowing that escalating the situation would only lead to more conflict. He took a deep breath, about to respond, when he realized that any attempt at reason was futile. "I just wanted to talk, Nathan," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Let's keep the peace." He turned to leave, his heart heavy with a mix of disappointment and anger, knowing that this wasn't the end of the matter. He walked back toward his house, but the echoes of Nathan's laughter followed him, a stark reminder of the growing divide in their neighborhood. Jordan Carter stood at the foot of Nathan Brooks' door, the night air thick with tension and the fading echoes of a raucous party. He smoothed the front of his shirt, adopting a smile that belied the storm brewing within him. He was determined to approach this confrontation with civility, hoping to bridge the gap between their two worlds. With a firm but gentle knock, he waited, heart pounding slightly in his chest. The door swung open abruptly, revealing Nathan, whose expression morphed from surprise to disdain the moment he recognized Jordan. The party's noise pulsed behind him, a chaotic mix of laughter and music that only heightened the tension. Jordan's smile faltered slightly when faced with Nathan's scowl. "What do you want?" Nathan snapped, his voice laced with irritation. "I just wanted to talk about the noise," Jordan began, maintaining his composure. "It's been quite loud, and it's disturbing the neighborhood. I thought we could discuss a way to keep the peace." Nathan leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed defiantly. "Keep the peace? You mean your peace? Why should I care about what you think? It's my house, and I'll do what I want." Jordan's brow furrowed, but he pressed on. "I understand it's your home, Nathan, but it's also a community. We all have to coexist. Just a little consideration." Before Jordan could finish, Nathan's face twisted into a sneer. "Consideration? You think I'm going to listen to you? Look at you. You think you can just waltz over here and tell me how to live my life? You must be joking." Jordan felt the heat rise in his cheeks, but he fought to keep his voice steady. "I'm not trying to control you. I'm asking for your understanding as a neighbor." Nathan's laughter was harsh, cutting through the night like a knife. "Understanding? From a cop? What a joke. You think you're better than everyone because you wear that badge? You're just a glorified security guard in a uniform. And let's be honest, nobody wants to hear from you, especially not me." The party guests, who had gathered around the doorway, erupted into laughter, clearly enjoying the spectacle. Jordan felt humiliated, standing there, the subject of ridicule. A knot of anger twisted in his stomach, but he knew better than to react impulsively. Instead, he breathed deeply, focusing on maintaining his dignity amid the jeers. "You can think what you want, Nathan, but I'm just doing my job," Jordan replied, his voice calm despite the storm within. "I don't want trouble. I just want to keep things civil." "Civil?" Nathan scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. "You wouldn't know what civil is if it bit you. You're just another one of those people trying to dictate to me how to live. Why don't you take your little badge and go back to your side of the street?" Jordan turned on his heel, a mixture of fury and disappointment coursing through him. He could feel the laughter of Nathan's guests fading into the background as he walked away. Each step felt heavier than the last, and though he maintained his composure, the anger simmered just beneath the surface. As he approached his own home, the contrast of his quiet life against the chaos he had just left behind weighed heavily on him. He could hear the laughter of his children inside, innocent and unaware of the hostility that lurked in the shadows of their neighborhood. Jordan paused for a moment at his front door, taking a deep breath to steady himself. He knew he had to rise above Nathan's provocations, for himself, for his family, and for the community he served. Inside, the warmth of family enveloped him, but the encounter with Nathan lingered in his mind. He resolved to handle the situation with the integrity that had always defined him, knowing that true strength lay in not succumbing to hatred. As he gathered his family around him, he felt the weight of his responsibilities more than ever, and with it, the determination to uphold justice and respect, no matter the challenges that lay ahead. The sun rose over Princeton, casting a golden hue across the Eastwood neighborhood. Nathan Brooks stirred in his bed, the remnants of last night's revelry lingering in the air like a thick fog. Empty beer cans and scattered red Solo cups decorated his living room, a testament to his unapologetic lifestyle. He squinted against the sunlight streaming through the curtains, a dull ache pulsing in his temples. As he pushed himself up, his mind flashed back to the confrontation with Jordan Carter. The memory of the police chief's calm demeanor ignited a flicker of irritation within him, but he quickly brushed it aside. After all, he was Nathan Brooks, the life of the party, the king of Eastwood. He stumbled into the kitchen, where the remnants of his loud gathering still echoed in the silence. The sound of laughter and music from the night before seemed to mock him. What a night, he chuckled to himself, pouring a strong cup of coffee. Yet, the thought of Jordan lingered in the back of his mind, nagging at him like an unwelcome guest. Who does he think he is, coming over here, trying to ruin my fun? Meanwhile, across the street, Jordan was already at the police station, reviewing the complaints that had flooded in about Nathan's party. The atmosphere was tense as officers shuffled papers and exchanged gossip about the notorious party host. Jordan, with his strong build and resolute demeanor, commanded respect among his peers. He had dealt with many difficult situations over his years in the force, but Nathan's blatant disregard for his neighbors had crossed a line. "Chief Carter, do you think we should intervene again?" Officer Thompson asked, leaning against the doorframe of Jordan's office. "This is getting out of hand." Jordan looked up from his desk, his expression serious. "It's not just noise complaints anymore. This is about respect for the community. We need to enforce the law." He stood up, adjusting his uniform, the weight of his badge heavy with responsibility. "Gather the team. We're paying Nathan a visit." As they drove through the neighborhood, Jordan felt a mix of determination and unease. His team, a mix of seasoned officers and eager recruits, followed his lead, understanding the significance of this operation. They arrived at Nathan's house, the remnants of the previous night still visible. A broken beer bottle glimmered in the sunlight, and laughter from a few lingering guests filled the air. Jordan stepped out of the car, the gravel crunching under his feet. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. "Remember, we're here to enforce the law, not to escalate the situation," he reminded his team, his voice steady. As they approached the door, Jordan knocked firmly, the sound echoing through the stillness. A moment later, Nathan appeared, his expression shifting from surprise to panic as he recognized the police chief. "What's this about?" Nathan stammered, trying to regain his composure. "I didn't do anything wrong." Jordan met his gaze, unflinching. "We've had multiple complaints about noise disturbances and unruly behavior from your party last night. We need to discuss this." Nathan's bravado faltered as he realized the seriousness of the situation. "Come on, Jordan. It was just a party. You know how it is." His voice rose defensively, but the fear in his eyes betrayed him. Jordan remained calm, his voice steady and authoritative. "This isn't just about a party, Nathan. It's about respect for your neighbors and the law. We're here to issue a citation." With that, Nathan's facade began to crack. "You can't do this to me. I'm a good guy. I'm just trying to have some fun," he pleaded, desperation creeping into his tone. Jordan held his ground, unwavering. Fun shouldn't come at the expense of others. It's time to face the consequences of your actions. The tension in the air was palpable as Nathan's bravado slipped away, leaving behind a man scrambling to justify his behavior. The sight of Jordan standing firm, radiating authority and integrity, filled the police chief with a sense of pride. As he prepared to enforce the law, he felt a wave of satisfaction wash over him, knowing that he was not just protecting his community, but also sending a powerful message about the importance of accountability. Nathan stood on his porch, the remnants of last night's party still clinging to him like stale beer and regret. His face was flushed, and he stumbled over his words as he tried to plead with Jordan, who stood before him with an unwavering stance. The morning sun illuminated the tension in the air, casting long shadows that only seemed to deepen the divide between the two men. "Look, Jordan," Nathan began, his voice strained. "I didn't mean it like that. You know how it is, just having a good time." He gestured vaguely toward the scattered beer cans and empty cups strewn across his yard, but Jordan remained unmoved. "Having a good time doesn't include disturbing your neighbors, Nathan. This isn't the first time. You've been warned about the noise complaints," Jordan replied, his tone calm but firm, a contrast to the chaos that had erupted from Nathan's house the night before. He held a citation in his hand, the official document a testament to Nathan's disregard for the law and the community. Nathan's eyes widened as he realized the gravity of the situation. "You're really going to do this? I thought we were friends. You can't just come here and ruin my day like this," he protested, his voice rising in indignation. The party guests, still lingering outside, exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of how to react to the unfolding drama. Friendship doesn't come at the cost of respect, Nathan. You've crossed a line, Jordan replied, his expression devoid of sympathy. He stepped forward, the citation held out in front of him like a shield. You need to acknowledge the consequences of your actions. This is not personal. This is about upholding the law. As the citation was handed over, Nathan felt a wave of humiliation wash over him. The laughter from his guests had faded, replaced by a thick silence that wrapped around them like a shroud. You're making a huge mistake, he spat, but the bravado in his voice was wavering. The realization that his arrogance had led him to this moment began to sink in. Across the street, the neighbors who had once tolerated Nathan's loud parties now stood at their windows, peering out with a mix of disbelief and satisfaction. They had witnessed the escalation of Nathan's behavior, from harmless revelry to outright disrespect. Now, they watched as Jordan, their respected police chief, stood his ground against the very man who had made their lives a living hell. Look at you, Nathan. You think this is about me? It's about every person in this neighborhood who deserves peace and respect, Jordan replied, his voice steady. You've shown none of that. This is the consequence. You need to learn that actions have repercussions. Nathan's face contorted with anger and humiliation, but he knew he was fighting a losing battle. The reality of his situation sunk deeper as the murmurs from the onlookers grew louder. He felt cornered, not just by Jordan, but by the community he had taken for granted. I'll make this right. You'll see, he muttered, trying to salvage some semblance of dignity as he took the citation from Jordan's hand. He turned back toward his house, the weight of the paper feeling heavier than any hangover. As Jordan watched Nathan retreat, a sense of pride washed over him. He had stood up not just for himself, but for the entire neighborhood. He turned to see the neighbors starting to emerge from their homes, their expressions a mixture of relief and newfound respect. Thank you, Chief Carter, one neighbor called out, her voice breaking the lingering tension. It's about time someone held him accountable. Jordan nodded, appreciating their support, but he knew that this was just the beginning. He returned home later that day, feeling lighter despite the weight of the events that had unfolded. His children greeted him with smiles, the warmth of his family contrasting sharply with the harshness of the morning's confrontation. Dad, did you really give Mr. Brooks a ticket? His son asked, wide-eyed with curiosity. Jordan chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. I did. Sometimes, people need to learn that their actions matter, he said, sitting down to share the story with his family. He reinforced the values of integrity and justice, hoping to instill in them the importance of standing up for what is right, no matter the consequences. As he recounted the event, his wife listened intently, pride swelling in her chest. You did the right thing, Jordan. I'm proud of you, she said, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. In that moment, surrounded by the love of his family, Jordan felt a renewed sense of purpose. He knew that the struggle against prejudice and injustice was far from over, but he was ready to face whatever came next, determined to uphold the values of respect and fairness in his community. As the weeks rolled on in the Eastwood neighborhood, Nathan Brooks found himself increasingly isolated. His loud parties, once the highlight of many weekends, had dwindled to a mere whisper of their former glory. The vibrant laughter and raucous music that once spilled out of his home had been replaced by a palpable silence, broken only by the occasional sound of his own regret echoing off the walls. Nathan stood at the window one evening, watching the neighborhood draw together, families bonding over barbecues, children playing in the streets, and neighbors greeting one another with genuine warmth. It was a stark contrast to the disdain he had cultivated through his arrogance and vile prejudices. In the midst of this community renaissance, Jordan Carter thrived. As the respected police chief, he had become a beacon of integrity and fairness. The neighbors, who had once been wary of the raucous behavior emanating from Nathan's home, now rallied around Jordan, expressing their appreciation for the way he handled the situation. They admired his professionalism, his calm demeanor in the face of adversity, and most importantly, his unwavering commitment to justice. One afternoon, as Jordan strolled through the park with his children, a group of neighbors approached him, eager to express their gratitude. Chief Carter, called out Mrs. Simmons, a kind elderly woman who lived 2 doors down. She waved her hand, the sun glinting off her glasses. "We just wanted to thank you. It's so peaceful now. We feel safe knowing you're looking out for us." Jordan smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "Thank you, Mrs. Simmons. It's my job to ensure everyone feels safe in this community. Together, we can make Eastwood a better place." As he continued to walk, his children gleefully sprinting ahead, Jordan couldn't help but notice the noticeable absence of Nathan's former friends. The gatherings had shrunk to a handful of disinterested faces, and whispers of Nathan's intolerance and arrogance had spread like wildfire. Jordan recalled the insults that had been hurled at him during that fateful encounter, and he felt a mix of pity and resolve. Nathan's choices had consequences. They were now evident in the way the community had turned its back on him. Meanwhile, Nathan sat alone in his living room, the remnants of his last party littering the floor. Empty bottles and crumpled napkins that told tales of nights long gone. He had tried to reach out to a few old acquaintances, but each call ended in silence or was met with excuses. The vibrant energy he once commanded had evaporated, leaving him with the hollow echo of his own prejudice. "They're just scared," he muttered to himself, nursing a drink. "They're weak. I'm better than them." But deep down, he knew that he had pushed them away, that his arrogance had created a chasm too wide to bridge. On a particularly quiet evening, Nathan decided to venture out for a walk, hoping to reclaim some semblance of his former status. As he wandered the streets, he spotted Jordan in the distance, engaged in conversation with a group of neighbors. Their laughter was infectious, and for a moment, Nathan felt a pang of longing for the camaraderie he once had. He approached them, his bravado in full swing, convinced he could charm his way back into their good graces. "Hey there, Carter. Nice little gathering you've got here," Nathan called out, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. The group fell silent, their expressions quickly shifting from camaraderie to discomfort. Jordan turned, his eyes narrowing as he recognized the familiar face of the man who had once insulted him. "Hello, Nathan," Jordan replied, his tone steady but cool. "We were just discussing community safety and the importance of respect for one another." Nathan scoffed, the disdain evident in his voice. "Respect? What do you know about respect? All you do is flaunt your badge and play the good cop." Jordan remained calm, unfazed by Nathan's attempt to provoke him. "Respect is about understanding and valuing each other, Nathan. It's about recognizing our differences and building a community where everyone can thrive. Something you might want to consider." The tension hung thick in the air, and Jordan's words seemed to hang over Nathan like a dark cloud. With a scoff, Nathan turned on his heel, muttering under his breath, "I'll show them. I'll show them all." As he walked away, the neighbors exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of disbelief and relief. Jordan, embodying the very essence of leadership and integrity, had stood his ground. The community continued to rally around him, their faith in justice and respect growing stronger. In Eastwood, it was clear who the real leader was, and it wasn't the man trapped in his own prejudice. The night air was thick with the pulsating beats of yet another party at Nathan Brooks' house. The lights flashed in vibrant colors, drowning out the stars above, while the laughter and loud music spilled into the Eastwood neighborhood like an unwelcome tide. Nathan, fueled by a sense of entitlement, reveled in the chaos he had created, oblivious to the growing resentment simmering across the street. Jordan Carter, the black police chief of Princeton, sat at the dining table with his family, the warmth of their laughter a stark contrast to the raucous noise next door. He glanced out the window, his expression tightening as he watched the party unfold. His children, oblivious to the disturbances, continued their games, but Jordan felt the weight of the community on his shoulders. He had maintained his silence for too long. It was time to take a stand. With a determined breath, Jordan stood up, excusing himself from the table. "I'll be right back," he said, and his wife nodded knowingly, concern etched on her face. He stepped out into the cool night, the sounds of his family fading behind him as he crossed the street. Each step felt heavier, a mixture of resolve and apprehension settling in his chest. He reached Nathan's front door, the noise amplifying around him, and knocked firmly. The door swung open, revealing Nathan with a drink in hand. A cocky grin plastered across his face. Well, if it isn't the neighborhood cop. What do you want? Nathan's voice dripped with disdain, his eyes narrowing as he took in Jordan's presence. Nathan, can we talk? Jordan's voice was steady, though beneath it lay a current of frustration. Your party is causing a disturbance. I've received numerous complaints from the neighbors. Complaints? From who? The other losers in this neighborhood? Nathan laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. Tell them to lighten up. This is my house, and I'll do what I want. Jordan felt the heat of anger rise within him, but fought to keep his composure. This isn't just about you. It's about respecting the community. Respect? You want respect from me? Nathan scoffed, stepping closer, his bravado peaking. I don't respect anyone who doesn't deserve it. And you, Jordan, are just another quota to fill. With that, Nathan pushed past Jordan, rejoining his party, the laughter erupting again, louder than before. Jordan turned away, the weight of the insult heavy in his heart. He walked back to his house, determination replacing anger. This time, he wouldn't let Nathan's arrogance slide. Hours later, as the clock struck midnight, the sound of sirens pierced through the music, signaling the arrival of law enforcement. Jordan led the way, flanked by his team. The energy shifted palpably as they approached Nathan's house, the music suddenly muted by the impending confrontation. Nathan, however, was not ready to back down. What's the meaning of this? Nathan shouted, stepping onto his porch, drink still in hand. You think you can just barge in here and ruin my party? Jordan stepped forward, his uniform a symbol of authority and order. We've received multiple complaints about noise and disorderly conduct, Nathan. We're here to enforce the law. Enforce the law? Nathan laughed, a desperate sound. You think you can intimidate me? I'm not afraid of you or your little badge. With a steady voice, Jordan continued, this isn't about fear. It's about accountability. I'm going to issue citations for the noise violation. As Jordan began to write up the citations, Nathan's bravado transformed into panic. You can't do this. I'll have your job. You're just a... But before he could finish, he turned to retreat into his house, a frantic look in his eyes. Jordan, sensing something was off, followed him inside, only to be met with a shocking sight. Hidden under the couch, partially exposed, lay a stash of illegal substances. The atmosphere shifted, the partygoers suddenly silent as the gravity of the situation crashed down. What is this, Nathan? Jordan's voice was calm, but laced with authority. I can explain. Nathan stammered, his bravado shattered. It's not what it looks like. But Jordan's patience had worn thin. You're under arrest for possession of illegal substances and resisting arrest. The words hung heavily in the air, and the irony of the situation was not lost on him. Nathan's arrogance had led him to this moment, where his prejudices and disdain had finally caught up with him. As the cuffs clicked around Nathan's wrists, the crowd outside began to murmur, disbelief spreading like wildfire. Jordan looked around at the neighbors gathering, their faces a mixture of shock and satisfaction. As he led Nathan out of the house, the realization dawned on everyone. Justice had prevailed, and the scales had tipped in favor of integrity and respect. Jordan's heart swelled with pride as he walked Nathan past the onlookers, their whispers a testament to the change in the air. He had stood firm against hatred, proving that respect could conquer prejudice, and in doing so, he had solidified his place not just as a police chief but as a defender of the community.